Ex-NATO hacker. In the cyber world, there's no such thing as a ceasefire. The ceasefire between Iran and Israel, so this was from about a week ago, may prevent the two countries from firing missiles at each other, but it won't carry any weight in cyberspace, according to former NATO hacker Kandan Bulukbus, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He's the chief technology officer and founder of Black Kite, a cyber risk intelligence firm that assesses businesses' third-party supplier risks. His company also shares and receives threat intel with and from the U.S. National Security Agency, as do other private security firms. Prior to founding Black Kite in 2016, he worked for NATO as part of its counter-cyberterrorism task force, helping member and partner harden their network defenses by simulating offensive cyber attacks against government agencies. His final mission with NATO involved red teaming a critical power grid in Kiev, Ukraine. Most of the facility systems were air-gapped, isolated from external networks, which made it more difficult to break into. It wasn't easy to target, so I said, okay, let me find these suppliers for this organization. I found 20 of them, picked one that would be the easiest to find and target, and used that to access the grid control panel. Literally one command away from taking down the grid. Shortly after, in 2015, Russia's sandworm did shut off part of Ukraine's electricity grid, resulting in power outages for tens of thousands of Ukraine residents for a number of hours. 10 years later, Bulukbas says he's worried about one of Iran's cyber arms doing something similar, which is a supply chain attack. So if you have an air-gapped system, it means that it's not connected to any external network. So it's not like connected to an external Wi-Fi. Maybe it's connected to an internal Wi-Fi, but even that is that's very rare in air-gapped systems. It usually means that everything is physically and manually transferred from machine to machine, and nothing's connected together. Even the idea of having like bringing in a USB stick or something like that, that would typically be a no-no in air-gapped systems, as an example. Not completely exclusive, but typically you don't do that, right? But all he had to do was find up the chain and the supply chain. Well, people are going to need to import something, right? You're going to have to import some kind of hardware product in order to run a machine inside of an air-gapped system. The creation of the air-gapped system necessarily means something's going to have to get brought in. Let me go figure out what gets brought in, and then I'll hack those instead, so that when the thing gets brought in, I can set up execution mechanisms that I know will execute under certain scenarios, even if it takes time, even if it takes a long time for them to execute, and then Bob's your uncle. So, okay, so 10 years later, Bulukbas says that he's worried about one of Iran's cyber arms doing something similar to Israeli or American critical infrastructure in retaliation for the airstrikes earlier this month. My belief is they're going to go after the supply chain because that's our weak spot. It's not just a weak spot in hardware and like physical things. It's a weak spot in programming in general. We often go to the trust the experts bro, just npm install whatever, use a library, framework, or abstraction. That becomes an independent third-party thing that someone can attack, get access to, and they can break your system down. Adding that while it's really difficult to breach the Pentagon's networks directly, Iran is going to go after the supply chains of Israel and U.S. Department of Defense suppliers. He pointed to Russia compromising Western logistics firms and tech companies, including email providers, as a means of collecting valuable intel about Ukrainian targets and military strategy in that ongoing conflict. Russian cyber spies also breached internet-connected cameras at Ukrainian border crossings to track aid shipments and targeted at least one provider of industrial control system components for railway management, according to a joint government advisory issued last month. Similarly, smart TVs and other home IoT devices can be easily compromised and used to build a botnet for distributed denial of service attacks, or a massive network of connected boxes to route traffic and launch cyber attacks against high-value targets. It's very unlikely that they can launch a sophisticated attack against the NSA, Pentagon, or these kinds of bigger organizations, Bulukbas said. Those are outside of Iran's reach unless Russia or China backs them, which he believes is also highly unlikely. Giving Iranian cyber operatives access to some critical American network after Russia and China did the dirty work of breaking in or blowing a zero-day exploit to aid Iran isn't in either of these countries' best interests, Balukbas explained. It's more likely that Moscow and Beijing would want to save them for themselves. Iran is alone in the game, but they can go after low-hanging fruit. Remember Stuxnet? While we haven't seen any ceasefire happening in terms of Iranian cyber campaigns, especially when it comes to phishing for high-value individuals, credentials, and sensitive military information, we also do this, Balukbas said, referring to the United States. Case in point, Stuxnet, a malware deployed against Iran's nuclear fuel centrifuges, was a joint American-Israeli op, and that, of course, was during a ceasefire. We were not in a war with Iran. The U.S. had the biggest cyber army, strategic or talent-wise, he added. The NSA is known for having the biggest zero-day arsenal on the planet. I'll repeat it again. The NSA is known for having the biggest zero-day arsenal on the planet. We have a doctrine on something called Defense Forward that says if we see something in cyberspace that can disrupt us, we're going to attack it first, and we have that under U.S. Cyber Command's mission. And while Balukbas doesn't expect to see the U.S. unleash any major cyber weapons against Iran at this point in the conflict, he suspects cyber espionage, influence operations, hack and leaks, and poking holes in Iran's military and cyber infrastructure are all regular occurrences. The U.S. didn't enter the Iran-Israel war with a word I can't say, he contends. That was started in cyberspace a long time ago. For network defenders to protect against Iranian cyber threats, be careful with phishing attacks, he said. It's common because Iran doesn't have a lot of 0 days, so they go social. Be careful what you click on. Don't believe everything you read or see. Iran, along with Russia and China, are getting really good at using generative AI for fake news and social media posts that aim to manipulate public opinion. Last but not least, patch your system, including IoT for end users and residential people. Patch your external facing systems quickly, not a week or 10 days or a month later, because time is ticking.